It happens that the stage sets collapse. Rising, streetcar, 4 hours in the office or in the factory. Meal, streetcar, 4 hours of work. Meal, sleep. And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday according to the same rhythm. This path is easily followed most of the time. But one day, the why arises, and everything begins in that weariness tinged with amazement. Albert Camus, The Myth of Sisyphus. Stories are the medium in which we communicate ideas without telling them, only showing a life, a world, a character impacted by these said ideas. Sisyphus is among the most recognizable bundle of ideas out there, present and relevant to our daily lives, all-encompassing. The unbreaking routine, the seeming uselessness of it all. Many symbols rest upon Sisyphus' shoulders, many metaphors, some apparent and some not so much. Stories pick apart and explore these ideas in all their forms. Those are the themes present in stories, and in my opinion, they give the answer. Living, naturally, is never easy. You continue making the gestures commanded by existence for many reasons, the first of which is habit. Dying voluntarily implies that you have recognized, even instinctively, the ridiculous character of that habit, the absence of any profound reason for living, the insane character of that daily agitation, and the uselessness of suffering. Albert Camus, The Myth of Sisyphus. At its core in the Greek myth, the image of Sisyphus is one of punishment for his failures. What story explores the themes of punishment and guilt, crime and punishment? One of the most influential novels of all time. It's about Rodion Raskolnikov, a man who commits a terrible act, caught in the machinations of intelligence and stuck in the despair of poverty-stricken youth. His whole story after that initial act is one of self-reflection and punishment. His boulder is his guilt, the greatest punishment of them all. He shows just how long and difficult the road out of self-torture is, as the pressure to confess increases. The price of guilt does not bear on him alone, as his family suffers as well, reminding us of the truth. If we do not handle our boulder with strength and dignity, people near and dear suffer as well, for our own misdeeds. But, by the end, though he has not gotten that boulder over the hill, he finds at least some comfort in the exceptional people he meets. Sonia, a kind soul in depraved circumstances. Razumikin, Raskolnikov's foil, an amicable man who responds to suffering and punishment with kindness and generosity. Raskolnikov is opposite to all those ways. A cold, aloof man who believes himself above the masses of society, yet he is so often upstaged by the most simple and generous of men and women, despite his hostility. They see something in him that he does not see in himself. But finally, at the end, Raskolnikov sees himself in all his ugly glory, revealed by the love he has for Sonia. He has no redemption, only a small success against monumental failures. The boulder is forever pushed up that hill. At least some redemption. Sisyphus could be viewed as a character on the way to redemption, the long, arduous, perhaps endlessly long path. I find no better story that explores this theme as deeply as Red Dead Redemption 2. Arthur Morgan is an outlaw and a killer. He slaughters without remorse for his gang, his family, the same people who raised him. Once the Vanderlyn gang's fortune starts to dwindle as one botched heist comes after another, he slowly realizes how much damage they are actually causing. One after another, his friends start dying, and Dutch Vanderlyn always said there was a plan, who taught him the philosophy that they were doing this for the greater good, that the weak must perish and the strong take what they want. Gradually, Arthur began to see the truth of what it truly was, a justification for Dutch's crimes. One of the gang members, John Marston, starts a family. Arthur makes it his mission to protect them, since he realizes that maybe only John Marston could live and escape past the outlaw age. In the middle of this, he contracts tuberculosis, a fatal disease for that time. Now Arthur knows he has lived a bad life, and in the end doesn't know what to do, until someone comes along and shows him the way.
I guess I'm afraid.
There is nothing to be afraid of, Mr. Morgan. Take a gamble that love exists and do a loving act.
His boulder is his redemption, and he pushes it uphill. Arthur Morgan never knows true redemption because, unlike some other stories that I could mention, redemption is a lifelong pursuit that is never guaranteed. He does good things. He helps good people, tries to undo some of the mistakes he makes. He tries to help people, but in the end, it never seems enough. Arthur Morgan dies, his boulder never knowing the top of the hill. But maybe, just maybe, as he lies at the bottom of the hill, defeated, he was a better man than the day before. Arthur Morgan's character arc shows us that true redemption isn't really possible, but repentance and becoming a better man is. But the futility of not achieving something as important as redemption is another thing.
But he is wrestling with a giant.
Futility is possibly the most well-known theme of Sisyphus because of how it relates to daily life. A chilling example of futility against fate, most often of death, is No Country for Old Men. Anton Chigurh, the primary antagonist, fancies himself gravity in the image of Sisyphus, inevitable and inescapable. He is the gravity and the inevitable fall of every character he meets. He personifies the futility of trying to fight the fate of the boulder coming crashing down. Nobody can escape that. Nobody can change that. The ultimate irony is that Anton Chigurh himself has his boulder and makes his gravity. Carla Jean Moss refuses to play his little game, thus forcing him to confront that he wasn't really killing people because it was his duty, but because he enjoyed every moment. He makes the conscious decision to kill her, the most defenseless person he'd killed yet. Then came the crash, the fall of his own boulder. Anton was so caught up in dealing everyone their fate that he disregarded that he has his own fate and cannot control it in any way, however much he wants to. He was brought low by mere chance, humiliated in front of a bunch of teenagers, and forced to bribe them using money covered in his own blood. Sisyphus was inevitable once more. But what about the stories that focus after the fall of the boulder? The Last Samurai is a perfect example of perseverance and determination to hold to one's values, even when the whole world seems to be against them. At first, the main character, Nathan Algren, couldn't care less about samurai. During a job in which he had to train Japanese forces to fight in Western ways, he was captured by Katsumoto's rebel forces. While he spent time with the samurai, he began to appreciate their culture of respect and adherence to the code of honor. He even learns their ways and becomes like one of them. But now some of the samurai are importing Western weapons, machines, and worst of all, their traditions, which are taking the place of the native culture. Despite knowing that replacement is inevitable, knowing that they have such a small chance of succeeding, they continue with the boulder and charge to show that they are unafraid. In the end, they died, but their deaths saved their traditions, their codes. The samurai are dead and have failed ultimately, but their death means that the next time the boulder is rolled up that hill, it could be done with a little more hope and dignity. Another example would be the entire arc of Captain America. He's a man out of place, out of time, exemplifying ideas abandoned by the modern world. He may be perfect in personality, without flaws of character, but he has to try and figure out what to do in a morally ambiguous civilization. His iconic line perfectly exemplifies his character arc and how it relates to the myth of Sisyphus. He is, without a doubt, egoless, but that cannot be said about the next theme and story. The Great Gatsby, in my humble opinion, is a tale of hubris at its core, one of the great sins of humanity. This time, instead of exemplifying Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill, it symbolizes how he got there. Sisyphus came to that position because of his hubris. He believed he could cheat death in one version of the myth. In the other, he tried to bargain with the gods and outsmart them. Initially, Sisyphus got away with his reward, but in the end, inevitably, old age came for him and he had to suffer for his cunning and trickster nature. Gatsby cheated the hierarchy, thinking he could outsmart the system of classes, chasing a dream that could never be. In his arrogance, he never thought that he could fail in attaining the dream of spiriting away the girl he wished for. In the end, when the dream came crashing down upon his head, he saw his sin. But then it was too late and he died, forever cursed for the damage he had caused in his blind grasping for a dream he himself had created, fancying he had cheated everything in his way. Gatsby's ego led to his own death, same as the next, perhaps final, theme. Sisyphus evaded death several times, but it did not avail him, similar to another story. In Harry Potter, Voldemort sought to cheat death multiple times, delving deep into terrible arts to do so, destroying his soul in his hubris that he could change fate. Harry Potter, however, learns to accept death like an old friend. It had been with him since childhood, since the death of his parents. It followed him like a shadow through his school years, so much so it became his friend. Voldemort and Sisyphus were like the two eldest brothers in the tale of three brothers. They thought they could defeat death, while the youngest brother, like Harry Potter, evaded death but wasn't egotistical about it, accepting death when it finally came for him. There is no worse punishment than worthless, hopeless labor. Albert Camus, The Myth of Sisyphus. Here we stand. We have gone through a journey of themes and storytelling, and for what? What do stories such as these say about Sisyphus, and do they have the answer? Have I gone on a meaningless journey for which there is no answer? But I do believe I have missed a theme. A theme, perhaps a part of Sisyphus, perhaps not, but a part of every story that deals with his themes. In the end, Sisyphus should take responsibility for his punishment, his redemption, the futility, his perseverance, his hubris, and finally, for his death. How does he take responsibility? By pushing the boulder up that hill. Why? Because it is worthwhile. Why? Because difficult things have value, not because of the goal, but because of the effort. Why write a book? Not because you want to be famous or successful or any of those other pursuits, because you want to write a damn good book. Why learn, study, school when you know that inevitably death will come for you and all that learning will be for nothing. Because learning in itself has worth. But why do difficult things have worth? Of all the schools of patience and lucidity, creation is the most effective. It is also the staggering evidence of man's soul dignity, the dogged revolt against his condition, perseverance in an effort considered sterile. It calls for a daily effort, self-mastery, a precise estimation of the limits of truth, measure, and strength. It constitutes an ascesis. All that for nothing, in order to repeat and mark time. But perhaps the great work of art has less importance in itself than in the ordeal it demands of a man and the opportunity it provides him of overcoming his phantoms and approaching a little closer to his naked reality. Albert Camus, The Myth of Sisyphus. Humanity's grand goal is mastery over life, and how one does that is through responsibility. You create better products for people, invent better ways of distributing them. Why make life easier for people when no matter what you do, life will always be difficult for them? No matter how much easier that life is, that life will inevitably end. Why try and solve suffering? Life is suffering. There will always be suffering because life is suffering. Why make a family when you perhaps will never see your children's true accomplishments? Does it matter when you are by your dying spouse's side, whether all the blood, sweat, and tears of making that relationship was truly worth it? Because it is your responsibility to master life, to create beauty where there is none, because in the end, you will peel back the illusions surrounding your true reality one by one. Stories that matter are ones that show their characters taking responsibility, or showing how much it costs when they do not. These are the heroes with 1,000 faces. They exemplify and personify the search for meaning and the destruction of illusions. That is why the greatest story in the world is about a man who carries his own cross. Stories are how we explore deep within ourselves. Because life is a story, and which story will you be? Like and subscribe if I made you think. Only if I made you think. And comment about other examples of these themes that I haven't talked about. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. But anyway, Veronwe out.